Hello, good evening.
Oh, hi Nicole, how are you doing?
It's fine, I just remembered.
Oh, right, I was a bit late putting out the notice today, I have to say. I'm sorry about
Oh, it's
that.
okay, it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember when I actually managed to do it, but I was
It's
busy
a,
just
it's the same time, so it should be
yeah,
to be able to
yeah.
remember it.
Well, still, I think a sort of little message always helps. And it's nice to tell people what we're going to be learning about. You know, some topics might be more interesting to others, to people.
Yeah.
Um, I put in the chat a couple of things. I want to tell everybody. Uh, oh, here comes Hannah. That's grand. Maybe I better wait. I'll tell everybody at the end as well. I'm planning to do some shiurim on the articles of Purim and Pesach. Um, so I've made a web page for them on my website, and I've made a little promo ad. These are shiurim that I do have to charge money for, because otherwise, if I don't charge money for some of the shiurim at least, I wouldn't be able to carry on. So details are on my website, and you can watch the little video I made today. I felt very proud of myself. I actually made a video. So, I'll put all the information on the WhatsApp group actually as well, and then you can all see what if you'd like to join in, if the time fits you, whatever. Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
grand. All right,
Okay,
lovely.
thank you. And they go on.
Okay, so let's start off with our tefillah, and we're going to be learning today. All right. Oh no, I have to share the screen, don't I? Share screen. That's right. There we go. Right. Lovely. Okay. So I want to dedicate the learning to the Eloi Nishma of my father, Avi Mori, Aaron ben Menachem Mendel. It's his 33rd Yortzeit today. I can't believe it's been so many years. Um, but he's still just as present as he always has been in my life. So that's a good thing. So we're going to learn Eloi Nishmato. ריבון העולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב רחמן וסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה בשתחוויה שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומה חיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה. על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחור ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לביניך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח לפני כיסא כבודך כריח ניחוח, ותאציל עלינו אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם וזכות אבותם וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם יעמוד לנו לבן לקשר בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיניי והביטה נפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לו רצונים מפיו, וגאון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. כן יהי רצון. Okay, so welcome everybody, and we're going to learn today about the Ner Tamid, all right, the oil in the Menorah, okay, really beautiful, beautiful topic. So let me share the screen. Here it is, Ner Tamid, and this is at the very, very, very beginning of this week's Sidra, and I forgot to get it up on the oh, here we go, Shemot 27:20. So let's just have a look at the actual words in the Torah. Mahon Mama, here we go. Shemot. I'm going to change my screen again so you can see that in a moment. 27, 20. Right, here we go. That's it. So let me share my screen, and so you can see that. Here we go. Here it says, this is where it actually begins. This is where the Sidra begins. V'ata tetzaveh et bnei Yisrael, v'ikhu elecha shemen zayit zach, katit lamaor, la'alot ner tamid. And you shall command the children of Israel, and they shall take for you shemen zayit, olive oil, zach, very, very pure, katit. Katit is like beaten, you know, when you bang the olives to get the oil out, that makes the light. La'alot ner tamid, to raise up this candle always. Ba'ohel mo'ed, in the tent of meeting, michutz laparochet, now outside of the curtain, so it's not in the Holy of Holies, it's outside, you know, it's outside of the Holy of Holies, it's in the ulam, okay, in the hall. Asher aleidut, which will be for testimony, or before the testimony. Yaroch oto Aaron ubanav, Aaron shall arrange it, or organize the light, and his sons, from the evening to the morning before God. Chukat olam ledorotam, it is an everlasting statute for the generations, may 8 bnei Yisrael, on behalf of the children of Israel. Okay, now, before we go on, we have to discover what was the Ner Tamid, okay? And the Menorah, as you know, had 7 branches, all right? Now, on the top of the 7 branches, they didn't stick candles like we have today. They actually had the Ner, the candle, is actually the vessel, all right, which you put the oil in, all right? So, you know, I'm sure you've seen pictures of these old, ancient candles, yes? They find, you know, pottery things. They actually, the candle itself is the vessel in which you pour the oil and you've got the wick, all right? So the Ner Tamid was actually the middle, there's a machlokit on which one it was. But they think it was, anyhow, it was the western candle, which was actually the one closest to the Kodesh Kodeshim. And some of the Meforshim think it was actually the central candle. All right? And you can have that actually pointing towards the west, because you could turn the candles round on the menorah. All right? Now, what was the issue of the Ner Tamid was that they put the same amount of oil in every candle, all right? But this candle, the one which was closest to the Kodesh HaKodeshim, would give much more light than the others. They were, in general, only meant to last from the morning to the evening, okay? And then they'd go out and start again the next day. But in fact, the central candle, this Ner Tamid, would have the same amount of oil in it, but it would last all the time. It wouldn't go out. It would last until, you know, they couldn't figure this out. This was amazing. It was a miracle. All right. And in fact, that was the one that they therefore used to light all the other candles with, because it never went out. So this was, I mean, they used to give it, you know, all the time, the same amount of oil, but the amount of oil it had, it kept alight. All right. So this was the miracle. And on this, Rabbi Ashlag is going to have a very interesting look to describe what is this miracle about. All right. And you shall take for yourselves, this very pure olive oil. Now let me make that a bit bigger so you can actually see that. This is from Rabbi Bar Shalom Ashlag, okay? Amar Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani is in the Gemara, says, Elecha, for you, lo li, not for me, lo la'orani tzarich. Don't imagine that we're lighting the candle because God needs the light. Okay, it's for you, not for me. Michutz leparochet, outside of the curtain which separated off the ulam, the hall, from where the Aron was, the Aron Kodesh. Haidut b'ol mo'ed, give testimony in the tent of meeting. What is this testimony? Eidut hu l'kol borei olam shashchina shora b'Yisrael. With this light, which never went out, was going to be testimony for all the inhabitants of the world that the Shekhinah is present in Israel. V'im tomar le'orani tzarich. But if you think that that God needs the light, halo kol 40 shana shalchu Yisrael b'midbar lo halchu elo le'oro. But if you think that God needs the light, surely all the 40 years that the children of Israel went in the wilderness, they only went according to God's light. But it is evidence for all the inhabitants of the world that Shekhinah is present in Israel. Ma'idut, what was the evidence? Amar Rabbah said, this is the central candle, the western candle, which was closest to the Kodesh HaKodeshim, shenotnim ba shemen keneged chevuteha, which gives the same, you put in it the same amount of oil as all the other candles, umimena hayam madlik uba hayam mesayim, and nevertheless, he would light from it, and it would still be lit afterwards. So yesh lishol sheila. So Rabbi Ashlag wants to ask a few questions about this. Aleph, איזה טיפש יכול לומר שהקדוש ברוך הוא צריך שישראל יאירו לו? Who could possibly imagine to think that the Holy Blessed One needs that Israel give him light? וכי הקדוש ברוך הוא צריך לאור גשמי? That does God need some sort of physical light? All right? Bet, lama היה צריך להביא ראייה מהמדבר? Why does the Gemara bring evidence for the children of Israel going in the wilderness? שישראל הלכו לאור של עמוד האש. That the children of Israel traveled by the light of the pillar of fire. ובלי הראייה, מה הייתי אומר? And without that proof, what would I say? I mean, why is that a proof? Okay? If supposing the children of Israel had gone, didn't travel by night and then had a cloud, would that still mean that God needs a physical light? So how does that prove anything? All right? So now he answers the questions. The purpose of creation is to give goodness to the created beings. V'makablim, and the receivers, shelokchim hatava, receive God's goodness. But how can they receive it? If we are in opposition of form from the Creator, then there is no connection. If God is all giving and we're all receiving, how can we possibly receive that? Peirush. Shemakablim et or Hashem. How do we receive the light of God? That is when we do our work of correcting our wills to receive for ourselves alone and doing good deeds. Okay? Az nikra or mitzad Yisrael. Then we're doing the work and the light is through our work that we're doing. Hainu hakochot shel Am Yisrael. That is through the work that we are doing, all right? The power of the work of Am Yisrael, that's what brings the light. And when the created beings, that's us, don't do the work, does that mean that God does not give his highlight to people? אבל אין להגביל אותו. But in fact, Rabbi Ashlag is telling us something very interesting. He says, in fact, there's two ways in which God conducts himself with us. All right? One way, as we know, is cause and effect, reward and punishment, whatever you want to call it. Okay? Which is through our good deeds, we become an affinity or form of the Creator. And then God's, as a natural way, as part of the spiritual laws, when we're in affinity of form, we've got a vessel ready and willing to receive the light of God, and we're in unity with him, and so he's able to receive his light. That's one way. But there is another way. That is, we must not limit God. This is what he says. We mustn't limit God and say that without our doing the work, God can't give it to us, which is not true. God gives light to us and goodness to us also when we don't deserve it. Okay? This is called itaruta de le'ela, awakening from above. All right? Even when we're not ready, even when we haven't done good deeds, God still loves us and gives to us. And he brings here proof of this from the wilderness. That the Holy Blessed One would give them light without their doing any work. For example, in the way that they ate bread from heaven. Without work. They didn't have to sow, and they didn't have to reap, and they didn't have to harvest, and they didn't have to distribute it, and they didn't have to do all the work that you have to do in order to grow the food. It just fell out the sky. Okay? So that is, he gave them goodness without them doing the work. All right? But only when they came to Eretz Israel and they had to do all the work to grow their own food, אז ניתנה להם השלמות. Then they got that whole aspect, הנקרא לחם מן הארץ, bread from the earth. Because the truth is that on the one hand, you might think it's very nice to receive for nothing, but ultimately it causes us embarrassment. So it's actually a more complete way is actually to receive through our good deeds. Okay? לכן, אפילו כשישראל היו עושים את המנורה במקדש, so even when Israel were making the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash, ניתנה להם העדות. This ner tamid gave them the testimony שידעו שהשכינה שורה בישראל אפילו בלי תורתא דלתתא, that God's presence is residing in Israel even without our work. כי אין הקודש ברוך הוא זקוק לאור של ישראל, היינו להכשרתם, because in fact the Holy Blessed One is not limited, and he can give his light to Israel to make them fit, to help them, even when we're not in the right place. Kim sadakta mati tenlo. I'm not quite sure how you translate that. Elo zeorat l'tovat adam shelo yeh nahamad ksufa. But in fact, it's better for the human being that we do our work, okay, because otherwise he feels embarrassment and he doesn't feel good. Okay. For example, Leila Seder, Satanite. Okay? Satanite is a perfect example of Itaruta de la Ela. God brings us out of our own Egypt, whether we deserve it or not. Wonderful. This great light comes into Satanite, okay? And we're all eligible for redemption, whether we deserve it or not. This is the vessels of Itaruta de la Ela. These sort of just gives us this light. Then we have to make our own vessels in the time between Pesach and Shavuot. We count the Omer, we grow the vessels ourselves, we do work on the vessels, do our own work till we get to Shavuot. But the Seder night itself is an example of God just giving this light freely out of his love. So you see there are in fact two ways that God relates to us. One with according to our deeds, the other one is just giving. All right, and we cannot limit God to only one system. Lachen ba eidot mitzad ne'amaravi. Therefore, this testimony comes from the Western candle. Shama itach nes, because it was used to light through a miracle. Kinyana nesu lamala me'ateva. Because the miracle is not according to the rules. The miracle is above nature. Okay? For the Holy Blessed One created the world through the natural law. Which means that we can only receive joy and pleasure according to our work. אז היגיעה הזו של חצי לוג, שיערו החכמים שמספיקה שדולק מערב עד בוקר. Oh, I told it wrong there before. So therefore, they should only receive joy according to their work, so that when they put into the candle half a log of shemen, that was the measure, okay, then it was representing the work for God, which was half a log, and this the sages estimated was sufficient that it would be lit from evening till morning. I said earlier from morning till evening. I was wrong. It's from evening to morning. And that the ner tamid was shining more than the amount of work involved. It was shining in the way of the miracle. Not according to the amount of work. From this we see that the Holy Blessed One is able to give light even without the deeds of us, the created beings. I think that's a very beautiful concept. I really do. Any questions or ideas? All right. I picked out a few short pieces, okay? So let's have a look at this one. This is the very next bit in Tetzaveh. Vasita bigdei kodesh laon achicha lichavod uletiferet. And you shall make the holy garments for Aaron your brother, for glory and for Tiferet. Glory, I suppose. Honor and glory. B'kol eit yu bigadecha levanim, v'shemen al roshcha lo yechsar. That's from Kohelet. At all times your clothes should be white, and oil on your head should not be lacking. Ne'emra mitzvat bigdei kuna b'samuch. The mitzvah of the clothes of the priesthood were put next to the one about the oil, and the commentators explained that there was a reason for that. Shemen meramez al dat hamoach shu yeh zach v'naki, that the oil needs to hint about the knowledge, the connection of the mind, okay? That it needs to be pure and clean. Shezeh perush shemen zayit zach, which is the inner meaning of the pure olive oil. Ubigdei kunam ramzim al haguf, and the clothes of the priesthood are hinting at the body. Shu levusha al neshama, which is the clothing of the soul. She'asoi kehalacha lekavod uletiferet, that it should be made as properly for glory and beauty or something. Now, how do we get to this very perfect, beautiful knowledge or connection with our mind? All right, how do we get to these beautiful clothes? So in order to look at that, we're going to go one moment back to the actual text of the Torah. Here it is. Okay. Can you see that, or have I forgotten to share? I think I've forgotten to share it. Sorry. Let me do that again. Yeah, that's what we need. Right. And you shall command the children of Israel, Vikhu elecha shemen zayit zach, and to take for you this very beautiful, pure olive oil. Okay, we said it's going to have this connection with the clarity of knowledge, of the beauty of the knowledge, clean knowledge, the mind. Katit. How do we get that? It's beaten. You've got to take the olives and you have to squidge them, all right, to get the oil out. So I was listening to Rabbi Gottlieb explaining this sentence today. And what he said was that we've all got different wills to receive. We all are. We've all got them. Okay? And especially I think in this day and age, it's very difficult to keep our minds clear for Torah with all the incredible amount of extra information that we're bombarded with, you know, on the internet and the WhatsApps and all the rest of it. Okay? But he says, if you take that and you squidge it, like give up your will to receive, okay? It's like you're in a way, you're opposing your own will to receive, because we have a huge will to receive information. Okay, it can be positive, it can be negative information. You've got to be really careful these days, all right? But it's like if you're giving it up, you're squidging it, you're not, okay? In a way, that brings the light, okay? If you oppose your own wills to receive, then there is a tremendous benefit. Now, we've all got wills to receive. Everybody, we've got wills for glory, wills for appreciation, wills for money, wills for who knows? Everybody's got them. Wills for security. People have got fears. People have got sort of lusts. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody's got everything. That's not true. We're all different, and we've all got our weaknesses in different areas. But if we take a particular weakness, all right, and work for God, you can either go with our nature, or we can simply say, no, I have a certain nature, I have certain desires, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to give in to that. Then Rabbi Gottlieb said there's a tremendous benefit. You get tremendous ability to shine the light. He gave for an example. Some people, for example, like to gossip. They do, they like it. They like to tell the story of who's doing this and what that person's doing that. Okay? Some people like that. They really like it. And to give up that tendency for them is a hard thing to do. But if they do refrain, then they become more of a light. They themselves become the candle. As it says, Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The candle of the Lord is the soul of man. And the more we give up, we, beat the olives, if you like, okay? And go against our nature, of whatever each one has, all right? Then we can become la'alot ner tamid. And he said there was really were tzaddikim who were connected with God, who I'm sure there are in the world still, all the time. In their sleep, they were connected with God. They were never disconnected. I mean, there's amazing stories of the Ari, for example, the Holy Ari. One time, one of his students happened to pop in on him on a Shabbos afternoon when the Ari was fast asleep. And he noticed that the Ari's mouth he was talking, saying things in his sleep. So he bent to hear, but he couldn't hear properly. And after a while, the Ari woke up. So he asked his sage, and he said, can you tell me, what you were saying, And the Holy Ari said that he'd been up so high in the higher worlds that he wouldn't even manage to express the Torah he'd learnt in 70 years. So, I mean, there have been always great tzaddikim who are so connected with Hashem that even in their sleep, they are the ner tamid. They are the everlasting candle. Okay, and Rav Gottlieb went on to say, "B'ohel moed michutz laparochet," that the menorah was put outside the parochet. Okay, asher aleidut. All right, outside the parochet, because he says inside the parochet, in a way, there's too much light. Okay, outside the parochet, because there is a value to the light which comes from the dark, and that is why the value of the human being who is doing his work is so valuable to God, because we have all our dark bits, okay? And so when we do that work with the light which is coming from the dark, all right, and then we can become the ner tamid. Very nice. So let's go back to the actual text here. All right. Oh yes, the garments. The garments are the mitzvot. All right. That the mitzvot need to be halacha. That when a person does a mitzvah, he adds garments to his soul. All right. V'yesh lishol hashay. No, yesh lagid. So now Rav Baruch Ashlag gives another explanation, and he says, Inyan hamoach hem talmidei chachamim שעוסקים בתורה, הם הממשיכים את אור התורה, וזה מאיר לגוף. The shemen, we said there's two aspects. There's the oil, which represents the mind, and the garments, which are garments for the body. Yeah? Okay. So the mind of the Hakadosh, of the Kahal Yisrael, of the Knesset Israel, of the community of Israel, are the Talmudei Chachamim, the sages, who are studying and practicing the Torah. And they bring the light of Torah. And this can then shine to the guf, the body. And the body, that's the rest of Am Yisrael, Tomchei Torah. They uphold the Torah. They uphold it in their practice of Torah. Okay? V'zenyan eitz chaim hi lemachzikim ba v'tomchei ha'mushar. And the inner meaning of it is, this is the tree of life to those who hold it, and those who support it are happy. The soul relates to those who study the Torah, and the guf, the body, relates to those who fulfill the mitzvot, who uphold the Torah. B'yachad hem ish echad, and together they are one unity. Okay? The Klal Yisrael is made up of a whole. It's one whole. Ki efshar liot neshama belo guf. We can't have a soul without a body. Hainu rosh beli guf. That wouldn't work. The soul needs the body. In other words, the study of Torah and the fulfillment of the Torah needs to go together. Lovely. Okay, any questions? Comments? No? You all okay? All right. Now, the other place in the Torah where we get a lot of information about the Menorah and the lighting of the Menorah is in Baalotcha. Okay? So I went to Baalotcha to see what Rabbi Ashlag wrote there, and I found some wonderful articles. So I just picked up a couple of them. Hatawatanirot, when you raise up the lights. Piresh Rashi. What does it mean that the candles go up? Al Shem Shehalahav Olah, that the flame goes up. Katuv Bahadlakatan Lashon Aliyah, shetzarich ladlik ad sheteh shahevet olah me'eleha. So he says when the candles were lit, when Aaron lit the candles, it's the language of the flame going up, that it needs to light till the flame goes up on its own. El mul panei Menorah ye'il shivat hanirot. On the, I don't know how you translate that. On the face of the menorah will light 7 candles. Okay? All 7 candles have to light. Yesh lishol sheila al derech avodah. We can ask a question regarding our inner work for God. Ma merameset lanu hadlakat menorah. What does the lighting of the menorah hint to us? Hine katuv ner mitzvah v'torah or. The mitzvah is the candle, and the Torah is the light. Haguf nikra b'chinat ner. The guf, the body of a person, is called the aspect of the candle. Shetzukim nadlikoto shi'a'ir. But we need to light it until it shines, brings forth the light, illuminates. V'al ma madlikinoto. How do we light it? Al yedei Torah, through the Torah. Hainu guf. Now, the guf in Kabbalah, the body in Kabbalah, is actually the will to receive for oneself alone. So the body, when the Kabbalah says the word body, it doesn't mean just the physical body, which is the will to receive for oneself alone. It's also the mental body and the emotional body and the spiritual body. Okay? V'alav hayat tzimtzum. On that there was a contraction. In other words, concealment of the light. In other words, if we're using our will to receive for ourselves alone, from an image in whatever level, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, okay, we're acting for ourselves alone, then we're not going to be able to see the light. All right, that's what tzimtzum actually means, that the light has left. The light does not shine to that point. הנקודה הזו נקראת יצר הרע. And this point is called the יצר הרע. ורק על ידי מאור התורה יכולים להחזירו למוטב. And only through the illumination of the Torah can we restore it to good. שזה נקרא הטבת-הנרות. And that is the inner meaning of the phrase Hatawatanirot. I don't know how that is what Aaron and the Kohanim used to do. They used to go in Lehitiv Hanerot. That's what it's called. I guess what that meant is they used to take out the burnt out wicks, all right, take out the dregs of oil, and then they used to fill them up with a new amount of oil and put in fresh wicks. And as we said before, they would light the candles from the ner tamid. Okay, and that whole process was called Hatawatanirot. I actually found a nice picture on the internet of what that actually looked like. We can look for it in a moment if you like. Right, so what does it mean? We said through the light of the Torah we can correct our yetzer hara and bring it back to the good way. And that's the inner meaning of Hatawatanirot, getting the candles good again. Remember, we said a candle is actually a vessel, all right? So when we rectifying our vessels of receiving, that's what we would call Hatawatanirot, rectifying the candles. As yesh makom la'or Hashem. Now there is a conscious space for the light of God, she'ir b'tor haguf, that will shine inside the body. In the body, that the will to receive is actually shining. Vaz nikar guf menorah. And then the will to receive of a person is called the menorah. That's a very powerful statement. That our yetzer hara actually becomes a menorah. From the negative comes the positive. והגוף נברא עם 7 מידות חסד גבורות תפארת נצח הוד יסוד דקדושה, שהם 7 הנרות של המנורה, ולעומת זה יש 2 מידות רעות הנקראות 7 עמים. And in fact, we've got within us 2 potentials. We've got the 7 attributes, chesed, gevurah, tiferet, netzach, hod, yesod, of holiness, which would be the equivalent to the 7 candles of the menorah. And over and against this, we've got 7 midot, ra'ot, 7 bad attributes, which would be called the 7 amim, the 7 peoples. Normally they say 70 nations. Well, each one has got 10 sfirot, so 7 times 10, you get 70. Okay? עולם האדם לא יכול להדליק את הגוף בפעם אחת, but a person can't light up, receive the light in his will to receive in one go. אלא שיש עליות וירידות. There are ups and downs. Okay? We can't transform our will to receive in one go. There times we manage, there's times we fail, there's times we go up, there's times we go down. Okay, it's like the tide of the sea. We go in, we go out. לכן כתוב בעלותך. Therefore it's written when you're going up. שכל פעם שצריכים להדליק עד שתהיה שלהבת עולם מאליה. Each time we need to give energy to the light till the flame goes up on its own. We need to get to the stage that we don't need to overcome our will to receive each time, but ultimately, when we light that flame, it goes up on its own. And then we get to that stage, when a person merits to having faith in God on a very continuous way, all right, on a permanent basis. Most of us, our faith goes up and down with how well we're feeling and, whether things are going good for us or not. This, I won't say that's not faith in God. It is, but it's a very partial faith. All right? But from a partial faith, if we work on it, we can actually get to a full faith. All right? So the more effort we put into thanking God and bringing him into our lives, okay, and acknowledging his goodness, we will manage to get to a more consistent faith in God, also in the bad times. So a big key to that is to remember to thank God in the good times, not just take the good times for granted. All right? As we saw earlier in what we were learning today, God can give us good times, and does a lot actually, all right, without us deserving it. But it's important to acknowledge that and not just take it for granted. So we need to, the more we thank him in the good times, the more we will be able to attain our faith in God on a fixed basis, so that we, so that the ups become more prevalent. We take notice of the ups, okay, and then we'll be able to attract faith also when we're in the downs. Oh yeah, we read that bit. ומטעם זה אומרים שאדם צריך להתגבר בכל פעם להדליק הדלקה מיוחדת. Now, before a person's reached, that permanent faith, a person needs to overcome his will to receive, and every time to light a gain, okay, a specific light each time. וזה שייך שיש אמונה חלקית. That this happens when there's partial faith, like we said. You can have partial faith. It's better to have a partial faith than no faith at all. I know some people, they get very worked up if they're not, perfect. They sort of say, well, if I can't do it whole, then perfect, then it's not worth doing. That's not the way of Judaism. The way of Judaism is to say, okay, so we're not perfect, but you managed to do this, Baruch Hashem. You managed to do that, Baruch Hashem. You managed to do the other, Baruch Hashem. Okay, so that we don't go for perfection. We say thank you on the little things we are able to do. All right. So emunah chelkit is also valuable. Partial faith is also valuable. But still, in that stage, we need to work on ourselves. And we work on that until the flame goes up on its own. Which is when a person has merited to having faith in God under all circumstances. Not so easy. שרוצים שבגוף הנקרא מנורה יאירו השבע נרות שלה, שיהיה ממולא עם שפע, אין הפירוש שיאירו בשביל הגוף, אלא ששבע המידות יאירו אל מול פני המנורה. However, a person needs to know that there are people who want that in the will to receive, which is now we're going to hopefully call the Menorah, okay, when a person is merited to be in affinity of form with the Creator, he's got permanent faith, so his will to receive is now the Menorah, okay, and here we've got these 7 candles, his 7 good midot, all filled up with the light, but they're not filled up with the light for the will to receive, okay, but the 7 midot, the 7 chesed, gevurah, tiferet, netzach, hod, yesod, are going to give light to the el mul panem menorah, opposite the menorah, okay, that is to say the panim shel menorah. I'm not quite sure how to translate this, but you'll understand what I mean in a minute. And this is what is written, know before whom you're standing. In other words, that this menorah should give light neged hapanim. Whose panim? Neged panei Hashem. For God's sake. Klomar l'shem shamayim v'lo la'atzmo. In other words, that the person's attributes should be filled with the light of God, not for his sake, but for God's sake. All right? So that even when a person is corrected himself, that all his vessels is receiving is only for the sake of God, and that he's in faith in God, nevertheless, and he's shining like a menorah, is able to give out that light. It's not his will to receive. That's important. It's filled with light. He's just a channel for God's light, for God's sake. Okay? Wonderful. How are we doing for time? Oh, another 5 minutes. I missed a few sentences here. Okay, v'zeh pirush melamed shelo shina Aaron. Aaron did not change his way. What does that mean? Since to actually achieve that the person is shining like a menorah, I mean, what an amazing idea. That the pleasure of the spiritual pleasure is enormous, okay? And the more pleasure there is, the spiritual pleasure. And the sages tell us that one tiny amount of spiritual pleasure is worth more, is more pleasurable than all the pleasures in this physical world put together, okay? That means it's very much more difficult to intend that pleasure only for the sake of giving. V'zeh perush shelo shina. All right, so what does it mean? Aaron just did it without taking for himself alone anything. Hakol haya basis kasher tzivah Hashem et Moshe. He did it only on the basis that Aaron dealt with the menorah because God had so commanded Moses. Right. The honest truth is the next piece I've got here is long, and we're never going to manage it in 5 minutes. Right. And we have to leave that for when we get to Ba'alotecha. Okay? So that actually comes from the Sidra of Ba'alotecha. So we'll stop there for today, and it'd be great what we managed to do, okay? So just to remind everybody, if anybody wasn't here at the beginning, I'm going to be, Ezrat Hashem, starting some shiurim for Purim and Pesach, going to very deep articles that Rav Ashlag wrote, some phenomenal article. He actually gave it for Purim. He actually gave it on March 1948, just 2 months before the Declaration of the State of Israel. And there's a tremendous parallel between the redemption, the coming redemption of Israel, and the what happened in Shushan. And this is really an amazing article. And so all the information's on my website. I put it in the chat, and I'll put everything. I made a little video about it today. I was quite enjoying myself, and I'll put everything on the WhatsApp. And you can all have a look and see. All right? Okay. So everybody have a Shabbat Shalom. Is there any questions or anything from what we did today? No? Okay. You guys are amazing. All right then. Okay, everybody. So be well and have a Shabbat Shalom.
Good Sabbath.
Yeah. Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, I'll see you all next week. Hi, Dorit.
Bye. How are you?
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Good Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos.
Bye.
Bye.